Hi everyone, welcome back to Coffee Books and Rain, where I am getting ready to go to D&D. Usually I record afterwards, but I got ready a little early and I'm gonna go here in a bit. But I have a couple episodes to record before I do. One that I will go ahead and drop before I head out, and one that I will drop sometime later this week. But we have our coffee, we have our books and our reviews, and we don't have any rain, but last night, like right as I was kind of getting ready to start reading, some wind and rain started really whipping through the area, and my patio overlooks a pool. Well, sometimes it's like a one chair into the pool thing or a two chairs into the pool. This was like 75% of the chairs went into the pool. It must have been very quick and very sudden, even for pool furniture standards. So, pretty significant last night, but nothing going on right now. But let's dive in to A Sanctuary for Fire and Fate, Phoenix of the Phalandraw, book number 1 by Lolu, and I think it's Lolu Sinclair. So first and foremost, I have thoughts. It does seem as though some good readers also have some thoughts as well, but I did look at some of the reviews prior to doing this, just like literally as I was pulling it up. Now, I understand where they are coming from, and we will get into it. For fans of slow burn romantasy, high stakes adventure, and breathtaking magical worlds, A Sanctuary for Fire and Fate is the first book in a spellbinding new series where love and destiny collides. Mia takes her role at the sanctuary for mythical creatures very seriously. She's spent years tending to injured fawns, mischievous pixies, and orphaned baby dragons. But when brutally injured unicorns start showing up, she fears something ominous is headed their way. Then Mia witnesses something very few humans, I think it's very few humans witness, a phoenix's fiery rebirth. I don't think that sentence is quite finished. And now that phoenix wants her dead. Asher has lived for centuries, surviving by a rule that cannot be okay, yeah, I'm trying to read this and this is not phrased well. That no one can witness his resurrection and live. Okay, so that's how it should read. The rule that no one can witness his resurrection and live. However, there's a couple extra words in there. But something about Mia stops him from killing her, a feeling he can't explain. The more time they spend together, the stronger the pull between them becomes, something deeper than fate, more powerful than instinct. Now the ruthless Shadow Guild is closing in, and the sanctuary and its inhabitants are on the brink of annihilation. Mia and Asher must fight together if they want to protect the creatures and each other, because some connections are impossible to break and some loves are destined to burn forever. All right, so that's our summary. And I'm going to tell you the summary is a little clunky. Now, I was ready to come on here as I was reading this book, and I will say I was probably 65% of the way into the book, and I was like, you know what, I'm still really enjoying this and willing to give it 4.5 stars. Like, it was a cozy fantasy and I was having a great time with it. And then about 60% of the way in, and I did check, it was like 60% of the way in, it got spicy for quite a few scenes, and I will say there were 3 significant scenes. And then the ending just kind of ruined it for me. That is my personal thoughts and my personal opinions. And the reason I'm doing this review is not to dog or badmouth this book. And in fact, I'm going to try to tell you the reasons why I did like it more than the reasons that I don't. Because again, I don't want to spoil it if you do have any interest in picking it up. But one of the things I want to highlight is that this summary makes it seem as though it is some sort of epic high fantasy along the same realms of Sarah J. Maas or similar. It is not. Even the title a sanctuary for fire and fate seems to represent that level of a court of this and that, you know. I'm sure you understand. I picked it up with the intention, with the thought that this could be an epic high fantasy of that nature. It's not. The very first couple of pages is Mia and her friend, her best friend, who her best friend is half elven, have left college, so it is urban fantasy, and then they have opened I don't want to call it supernatural, a fae sanctuary, but it's not just limited to faes. I will say, my favorite character, which I wish I had a picture of, was a koala raptor. I need to see it. Definitely one of those creatures that when you read about it, you're like, what does that look like? I need to see this. So, there's humor, there is levity, and then there is that little bit of level of urban fantasy. It is not high epic fantasy. So when I'm thinking kingdom and world building and all this sort of stuff, we're not really getting that. We are getting a wildlife sanctuary of sorts with magical, mythical creatures. So if we take that into account, there we go. None of that is really kind of depicted in this summary. Now, again, I don't pick up books based on summaries because I frequently do not read them. And so if I had read this summary and then gone into the book and gotten what I had gotten, I would have been a little disappointed. So I'm thinking that's where some of the reviews have come from as well. Now, because specifically it says slow burn romantasy, high stakes adventure, and breathtaking magical worlds. This tells me that I thought we were literally getting a world to kind of explore. Now, we do get a little bit of an underwater adventure, which is super cute. And we do get flying on the back of a phoenix, which seems pretty cool. We do have a shadow organization, which feels a little tropish at best. We could have called them something other than the Shadow Guild, but okay, we'll go with it. They've been around for several thousand years. Maybe they weren't creative at the time. But we started, and for a good portion of the book, and I'll say about 50% of the book, we have Mia and her best friend and this guy who comes along and seems to be as though he's the Phoenix, okay? Asher, he's the Phoenix. However, he's almost like, the he falls first sort of thing. Well, he seems to almost have this sort of like, if he had come out with this whole like fated mate line, which is not stated in here, but I kept thinking it was going to be, he definitely has that vibe of like almost instant crush. And you're like, but wait, didn't the summary say about like, didn't the Phoenix try to kill her? Well, yes, technically. So apparently, upon his Phoenix rebirth, if you know anything about the lore behind phoenixes, when they are reborn, they kind of look a little janky at best, and then they burst into flames, into kind of a ball of flame, and then they arise from their own ashes renewed. So that's technically the process. Well, Mia just happens to wander up on him. She sees a light off in the distance across the lake, so she goes around there, and, well, she watches him get reborn. She didn't really plan it, she just did. So, but then the force of the explosion kind of knocks her back, bumps her head, passes out, and he takes her to his man cave. Well, she doesn't get to see a ton of it because, of course, he's very secretive about his man cave, his Phoenix cave, so to speak. And he's like, she hears him talking to himself as she's in and out of consciousness with a fairly bad sprained ankle. And he's talking about, well, I gotta kill her, but I don't want to kill her. Well, it's gonna make it harder if you don't. Like, if you keep trying to feed her, then, but he's talking to himself. And she's like, okay, this guy's crazy and he's planning to kill me. So I've got to get out of here. So her first experience with this guy is that, okay, he was gonna try to kill me. Let's just say she gets away, not going to tell you how, and gets back to the sanctuary where she's got her friends and all of her little fae family. And she's like, well, I saw this thing, I saw this phoenix, and, well, he tried to kill me, so I had to get away. A few days later, maybe it was a few days later. The thing is with time in this book, it's really kind of hard to tell. But he shows up, and I guess he's here to help with some magical unicorns. They are being, poachers are out there. They are linked to the Shadow Guild, and they are taking the unicorn's horns. So the sanctuary ends up finding and being able to start trying to save about 6 or 7 unicorns. And that was all fine and good. I was totally fine with this whole scenario. Up until this point, and again, about 50, 45-ish, 50%, we had this slow burn romance between Mia and Asher. She's a little jaded from some past relationships, and the fact that she's maybe picked pretty poorly in the past, as many of us have. But, he's really doing a lot to try to woo her. And she's just being very, she is starting to crush on him, but she's adamant to herself even that she's not going to fall for him. She's not going to go there. She's definitely friend zoning him. Well, then that starts to evolve, as it would in a book that calls itself a romantasy, and that's when the story seems to change, because we could have just left this a cozy fantasy romance, and I would have been totally fine with it and wanting to know more about the sanctuary and animals come to it and all this sort of stuff, and we could have known more about Asher and some of his adventures. Yay, that sounds great. Cozy fantasy. I'm so excited. I love cozy fantasy. It's so cute. I didn't even mind, although I did probably flip those pages just a little faster on those spicy scenes. That's fine. It just, I have bad exes in the past. I just don't want to think about those spicy scenes right now. But anyway, right around the 50-ish, 60% mark, we really start to kind of go after the Shadow Guild. Or we need to go after the Poachers / Shadow Guild. Fine. But then we also have other things that are happening as well. And I don't know. There was just the pacing was fine for me. We started off kind of cozy, and then we get a little bit more action going on, but really it's about 50% of the way that we're really kind of going into the action. But we're trying to get some redemption for these poachers, against these poachers for the unicorns, and we're trying to somehow figure out a way to stop the Shadow Guild. Well, let's just say, and I'm going to just put it to you bluntly, that since we are now, 14 minutes into this episode, somewhere around in there, things don't go to plan. Of course it doesn't. So if you're not looking for spoilers, maybe pause here or stop here. If you don't mind spoilers, I may give a few, because the ending ruined it for me. I was fine with fighting for what's right. I was fine for protecting these species. All of that was fine. But the way this author chose to end it ruined this book for me. I was ready to walk in here, tell you guys how much I loved it, give it a 4.5 stars on my Goodreads, because there's very few books that are perfect to me, but it was great and I consumed it so fast. But I just at the very end just was really? Is this the way we're ending it? Okay. So that's going to knock it back down. It's going to knock it to a 3.75, because I just couldn't understand the ending. The ending, the what happened of it, just does not make any sense to me, especially calling this book 1 of the Phoenix of Phalindrol series. I mean, I guess we're going to follow Asher, which is cool, but I don't know. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there for you because maybe you can extrapolate and interpret what I mean. And again, I am totally fine with it being like an urban fantasy-esque, and I thought the premise was interesting about this sanctuary that has these magical creatures. I need to know more about the koala raptor and what's going on with him. Like, these are some questions I have. And we did have this whole little vignette, or like this whole little focus around this little crystal frog that I don't really know, like, what the importance of this little crystal frog was, except that he had chosen their, like, pond to, like, be at, so that's fine. And then how fast the like, romance relationship happens, because it's like Mia, she's like, okay, I want to go slow, and then literally 5 pages later, she is telling this dude she loves him and she wants to be with him forever. So I don't call that slow. I don't think they were even dating for more than like a week. They had already had their first fight on like the day that they decided they were going to go slow. It was like actually they had their first fight before they even were like in a relationship, cuz he was taking her on a date. She kind of friend zoned him. He got his feelings hurt. He left. So that's kind of like their first-ish fight. Then she goes to apologize. And I swear that same day, like, they kind of have an argument about something. I'm like, well, all right. Okay, if you're going to be pig-headed about stuff, like, fine. But he's a magical creature and you're not. So maybe take some of his, like, thoughts to heart. Yeah, it's hard to, I think it is kind of hard with figuring out the timing in this book and, like, again, how quickly some things happen. I think that's one of my biggest issues. Again, the ending is my biggest issue. The ending is why I'm not giving this as high as I wanted to give it up until that point. And then there are points where Mia does act like a moody teenager instead of whatever age she's supposed to be. And that's another question I have as well, because like in my brain I had kind of put her at like mid-20s, but she could range anywhere from like because figure graduating college, opening a sanctuary, mid-20s ish to early 30s. So I'm not sure, but I think before I like rattle on more about this, I'm gonna go ahead and leave it there. I did fix my hair. It is now no roots. It honestly, you still can't see. Now, in my lighting and in my bathroom, I still see very small hints of pink, which I like. But I'm not seeing it on my little camera video, so maybe y'all don't see it, but my roots needed to be done like bad. But anyway, thank you so much for tuning in. If you have not liked and subscribed already, I hope you will. And with all of that being said, thank you for joining me on this journey. I will see you all on the next page.